Hello, I'm Brandon,
And I'm Mom.
and welcome back to Tansson Talks TV.
Yes, thank you for joining us again today.
Yes, we're always excited to do this. And Mom, how are you doing today?
I am doing fine, Brandon. Thank you so much for asking. How about you?
I am doing well. I'm very excited to get into this discussion. And Mom, what show are we speaking about here today?
Today we're going to talk about Smart Guy.
Yes, Smart Guy is a television sitcom that originally aired on the WB television network from 1997 to 1999. It was produced by T.A.T Entertainment, Danny Kalis Productions, and Walt Disney Television.
All right.
And Mom, I know we're going to do something a little special for this one.
Yes, we're going to do something special today, Brandon.
Yeah, and so we'll be speaking about two episodes this week.
Yes, we are. In honor of Super Bowl weekend, we have picked not only the premiere, which is typically what we talk about, but we have picked an episode that was kind of dedicated to Super Bowl.
Yes, so in this case, we'll be speaking about the pilot episode of the series that aired in 1997 alongside the 20th episode of the series titled Roofer Man Take One.
Yes.
But Mom, if you can go ahead and do us the honors of providing us the synopsis.
All right. I'm going to do the pilot episode first, and I will talk a little bit about Roofer Man. The pilot episode, it really is the explanation for the episode is really kind of very brief. TJ is a young child who is roughly between 10 and 11 years old, and he begins high school. And really, the first episode is it's really about his first day in high school with his siblings. All right. And then the second episode we're going to talk about is Roofer Man. And as Brandon mentioned, Roofer Man is the 20th episode that was seen. And we selected this episode, like I said, really because of Super Bowl. In this particular episode, Floyd is the father. He has a roofing company, and he wants the opportunity to advertise for his roofing company. His children talk about placing an advertisement on TV. He, of course, doesn't think that is he'd be able to do that. His kids are able to go down, and he realizes that they could do it for a reasonable amount of money, and they can advertise later in the evening. The evening they thought was going to be between 8 and 10 p.m., so 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. It really ended up being that they were going to be advertised between 8 p.m. and 10 a.m. in the morning. So when Floyd's commercial came on and his family helped produce the commercial, it was like 3 o'clock in the morning. And then the other two, they were committed to 3 episodes, and the other 2 episodes came on after that. And so TJ, Floyd's youngest son, he and his brother sneak back down to the studio, and they and TJ's able to actually kind of slip in the recording of the particular commercial, and he puts it in on a Sunday evening, thinking that he's going to get prime time, probably the 8 to 10 slot would be my guess. What he doesn't realize is that the Sunday that he did pick was the Super Bowl Sunday. So of course the commercial blew up, meaning in a good way for Floyd, but not so much for the networks because it was like free advertising out there on this particular day. And so later, TJ does have to quote unquote pay for his damages by kind of creating mini commercials, advertising the station. The station does not press any charges or anything like that because it is a small child or a young child who does this. All right, Brandon, and those were both synopses.
Well, thank you so much for that.
You're welcome, Brandon.
Yeah, and you can continue right into your top 10 list.
All right. So when I looked at the top 10 list, I kind of looked really at the first episode because that's what I like to kind of do, my comparison with. And just to kind of mark some things that we do notice on the particular first episode and wonder, and then lets us and the audience wonder, are these things that are significant later? I will say that Brandon and I did watch Smart Guy on a regular basis, along with the rest of the people in our family, and so we do know the answers to some of these questions. First of all, what is established first as the number one? We know that T.J. Henderson is a 10 or 11-year-old young child, and he is beginning high school. In the first episode, it is assumed that he's a freshman in high school. Um, we know that TJ has a high IQ and should really be in the fourth grade. Um, his dad, his parents, he, his dad's name is Floyd, and Floyd is raising the three children. His mother passed away, so Floyd is a widow. Floyd's three children are, of course, TJ. He has another son, and his name is Marcus, and Marcus is older than TJ. And then Yvette is the oldest, and Yvette is supposedly a sophomore slash junior. We're not quite sure, and well, no, she would have to be older, a junior in high school. I believe that they have said that Marcus is a sophomore when for the first particular episode. In this particular first episode, we note that Marcus has a problem with TJ being at high school. TJ himself didn't think he had a problem, even though there were some things that kind of, that were special about this particular episode. Marcus was the one who was having problems with his brother being there. Um, Overall, TJ seems to fit into high school, but you do know that he does not have the maturity. But he seems to kind of fit into where he's kind of set himself, and the kids are kind of accepting of him. The person who was really concerned about TJ was the guidance counselor. And I will say the guidance counselor only appears in the first episode. But the guidance counselor was initially concerned about TJ. But like I said, we later discovered that it was just for this first episode that she was there and that she kind of disappeared. Um, for the show itself, much of the show centers around not just TJ, but all of the kids on the show. And so, even though the show was called Smart Guy, the show itself can stand alone with the rest of the kids that are in the particular show. So, all of the kids have their episodes in which they are the star for that particular episode. Um, but is to me, it seems to be equally distributed among the children that are on the show. Um, in the first episode, we're introduced to a character called Mo. Mo is supposedly the bully on the show. In fact, when TJ first meets him, he makes a comment and he says, "Excuse me, excuse me." Later on, it kind of changes from episode 2 on. Mo really ends up being the best friend of Marcus. And so that's one thing that is a difference, is that we do notice that Mo goes from being the person who no one seems to know at the school to actually being the best friend of Marcus. And I will say that, in my opinion, Mo is one of the people, to me, is kind of, as we talk about breakout stars and shows, he kind of stands, to me, he stands alone, meaning that his persona on the show is larger to me. And so he, as a character, is able to stand out. And so later on in the series, his life is explored. We do find out about his parents and everything like that. So he's not just a best friend, he's a best friend who actually eventually has his life explored on the show. And he's nice comic relief also. Um, we also have a coach who is not in this first. A coach is mentioned in the first episode. However, the coach that I'm referring to is Coach Gerber. And if you watch the series on a regular basis, you'll begin to know who Coach Gerber is. But he also is an interesting character in the series. And to me, he provides comic relief on the show itself. And one of the things that I noticed while I was watching was we were well, Brandon and I kind of talk a little about this also, is TJ. TJ, of course, are initials, but TJ's full name, is never really given in the show. He's always just referred to as TJ. All right. Those are my 10 takeaways, Brandon, from the premiere episode.
Well, Mom, thank you so much for that.
You are welcome, Brandon.
Yeah, and touching on what you were saying and analyzing this episode's a little further, I want to start off with the pilot episode. So for me, this is very much a traditional pilot episode in that it has a lot of introduction, sets up the characters, and provides like a full circle moment by the end of the episode. And something fun that I thought about in this episode is that we have a lot of cinematic, like, moving shots in this episode that you don't really see a lot of on multi-camera sitcoms, but But going into the characters, though, the characters are all introduced by having the three siblings, Marcus, Javette, and TJ, come down the stairs to get their school lunches from their father. And something I always say about premiere episodes and especially pilots is the over characterization of the characters, because you kind of need to see all dimensions of the character all in a single episode usually. And so I would say this episode definitely, falls under those guidelines. And the episode highlights TJ as the focus of the episode, but his relationship with his brother is shown as the primary part of this episode, and is definitely in the forefront. But it also introduces us to the guidance counselor, Mrs. Williams, who is the liaison between TJ, the high school, and his father. And something that you mentioned, Mom, too, is sorry for the minor spoiler alerts for anyone that doesn't know, is that the character Mrs. Williams does not stick around past this episode, even though that she is a main character in this first one, and instead school bully Mo is instead becomes main character by the end of the first season. But switching gears a little bit for just a small analysis of the Rooferman episode, I will say that you can really see the chemistry and the ensemble of the cast. And I think it really comes to highlight how well the cast works both individually as characters and all together. But, Mom, let's go ahead and head into our discussion.
All right, Brandon. And I guess one of the first questions is, what do we know about the show? And as I kind of mentioned, both you and I watch this series quite often. I mean, our whole family watches the show quite often, and so we do know quite a bit about the show. Um, we have we've seen it all the episodes several times, and it is one of the things that I really like about the show. It is a nice family show, which is something that, as you can tell, that's kind of a trend with us when we discuss our shows. It is something that everyone in the family is able to watch all at one time, which is very nice. What are your thoughts about the show, Brandon?
Oh, yeah, I absolutely enjoyed the show. And it's sort of surprising that, there's only 51 episodes of the show just because it seems like there's just so many of them. But yeah, it's really fun watching the series. And I would say that I've definitely seen all the episodes and are very familiar with a good majority of them. There's a few that maybe I've only seen once, but for the most part, we've seen many of the episodes numerous times, and especially the episode Rooferman Take One that we are analyzing here. I'm sure that's probably one of the ones we've seen the most.
Yeah, and one of the things that you kind of mentioned that I do like about the Rooferman episode is that, like you kind of mentioned, that chemistry that they have and how it all kind of blends together. And there are even times at the beginning where they're taking a sip of their soda at the same time, they're eating their potato chips at the same time, and so it's just kind of fun to watch how they kind of play off of each other. So it is a very nice episode.
Yeah, and as a small note to that too is what we're referring to is that it's a Super Bowl themed episode, and so they were watching a lot of commercials throughout the episodes, and two were for the fictional brands Colonel Bubble soda and Amigo corn chips, corn chips. And so it's really funny because it shows that they don't really care for these ads, but at the same time, when it says, drink this now, that you see all of them, pick up their soda and take a sip. And so I think for the communication major, part of me, I think that's really cool.
Yeah, it is. And then one of the things we also talk about is the theme song, and they they had two main theme songs, and then they kind of had some smaller theme songs or shorter theme songs of the same theme song. So for the first, I think, year and a half of the episode, they kind of had the same type of theme song, and it's more so computer generated but you could see the real people there, and it is very catchy. And so I give that one a 7. It's a very nice, catchy, smart guy theme song. Now, that for the third season, they did something a little different, in which all of them are together, and Mo is able to join them on this particular part of the theme song. But even though it is very different, they have a short and a long version. It is also catchy, and so for me, I would get that one a 7.5.
Yeah. And as two notes to that, one is that the pilot episode does not have a theme song in of itself, and so the nice credits air you know on the lower thirds of the episode. But I will say for the third season theme song is that Omar Gooding that plays Mo is actually one of the singers for that one.
Okay, yeah, very true, very true. But yeah, so they did a nice job with the theme song for this particular show.
Yeah, and going on a little bit too. Speaking of the character Mo, is that if you've been watching all these episodes with us, you will see that Mo is a little bit familiar.
Yes, Mo comes from Hanging with Mr. Cooper, and which is the show that we talked about maybe 6 months or so ago.
Yeah, and so as a little fun fact is that while Smart Guy premiered in April of 1997, Hanging with Mr. Cooper did not actually finish until August of 97.
Yeah, so it looks like Mo was doing double duty.
Definitely. And that's not the only Tansson Talks TV connection. We have quite a few here. So for starters, the main character here, TJ, is played by Taj Mori, and he is the brother of Tia and Tamara, who play on the show Sister Sister. And then you also have, Yvette, played by Essence Atkins, who was on the show Are We There Yet, that we recently spoke about. And of course, we mentioned Omar Gidding, who plays Mo, was also in Hang with Mr. Cooper. And then we also have some tidbits with the production companies as well. So, DePass Entertainment, that produced the show, also produced Sister Sister. Meanwhile, one of the other producers, Danny Kalis, he he helped produce or directed for shows including Who's the Boss, Silver Spoons, and Hang with Mr. Cooper. And so, and even the director of this episode, John Tracy, he directed episodes of Who's the Boss, and even some shows we have not yet, reviewed here yet, but ones we've spoken about, such as Laverne and Shirley, Growing Pains, and Full House.
Wow. Yes, like I keep saying, we have a certain type of show that we like, and so you can kind of see how things are kind of going together.
Definitely, and I will say too, as another little reference too, is that at the end of the Rooferman episode, that they actually mentioned the TV show Alice, which we also spoke about.
Yes, yes, you'll have to go and check Alice out for us.
Yes, definitely. Watch that. That was a fun discussion. But yeah, so we have a lot of tidbits in this episode, that connect right back into the other shows we've spoken about. But like you're saying, it really does come to show like the shows that we enjoy. And I'm so glad there's just so many of these little connections. But so no, I was actually going to go ahead and ask you, what were your thoughts about the character Mrs. Williams?
Well, I can see why Mrs. Williams was there as a way to kind of show that someone is there kind of watching TJ and that he's just not there alone as the young child that he is going into high school. However, I will say that the way they kind of wrote the show and built the show, the fact that TJ's in high school really doesn't matter. He kind of fits in general with the people that he's with, and he's actually accepted by his peers at the particular school. Yes, he's not as mature, that is obvious. However, the people who are hanging around with aren't quite as mature either. So, and his brother does take care of him, even though on the first episode they show that they had their disagreements. His brother takes care of him along with his sister, and he's able to kind of make his way through. Even on the first episode, they show that he is the mascot for the school's basketball team, which of course. Marcus didn't like that because Marcus is on the basketball team. However, it works well later when Marcus and TJ are together playing together at the same time period. But then they're also able to bring in Yvette too, because Yvette's a cheerleader. So it all just kind of they just kind of did it really well to show that he is able to fit in, and that he's actually sometimes able to guide them into the right direction.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely have, like I said, really enjoyed the cast chemistry for the show, and yeah, I definitely think while I see, the reason that why there is a guidance counselor in Miss Williams' character, I think that the show was able to progress without her character, but I mean, I think that the first episode I think was probably the most traditional pilot that we have spoken about in a while, that truly stands out as a pilot episode separate from just any old premiere.
Yeah, it is truly. You could tell that they have just kind of set things up. It is like the setter upper episode.
Definitely. And yeah, and something I wanted to, yeah, I mean, to mention a little bit too, is that some of the, not only does one of the actors, Mo, of course, look familiar, but we also have, a little bit of the sets look familiar as well.
Yeah, and Brandon, I had to, well, I knew when I watched it the set looked a little familiar, but I couldn't place where it was from. And then we both read that the set was actually Boy Meets World, where the kitchen is, if you remove the stairs, the kitchen itself is from Boy Meets World. You were able to find a picture and show them side by side. And then the school itself is from Boy Meets World also. And so if you look at that side by side also, you can see that they are both from that particular show. But it's funny when we talk about sister shows, we look at Hanging in Mr. Cooper, that we saw where Hanging with Mr. Cooper had to use the Growing Pains set for their first episode. And then to go back just a little bit to Smart Guy, we noticed that they don't show a living room on the first particular episode anyway. Everything kind of takes place in the kitchen and the school setting. So I guess that's what they had for those two scenes.
Yeah, that's quite true. And I didn't even think about the non-existent living room for for that pilot episode. But maybe it also might come to show too that since the series is titled Smart Guy and everything, that maybe the school was actually going to be the main focus.
Yeah, well, and that's what I noticed too when I thought about it later. The school is, for the most part, the main focus of the show is either school or the home. They've got a few other alternative sets, but for the most part, it really is the school and the home where the focus of the show is.
Definitely. And yeah, I mean, overall, I think that this was just such a great show. And yeah, and who really knows, if all these shows come back, maybe Smart Guy can be one of the ones that come back. I'd like to see it.
Oh yeah, that would be great. It'd be nice if they kind of rebooted again. So, yes.
Yeah, but like I said, this has definitely been a really enjoyable show, and it's been really fun being able to revisit the pilot, because I believe it had been a while since you had seen it, and we've practically memorized Roofer Man Take One.
Yes, yes. Yeah, so if you're looking for something to watch before the Super Bowl, check out the Rooferman episode. It is a fun, enjoyable show, and like both of us keep saying, any other shows you want us to review, please put it in the comments below for us. Or if you have any, or if you would like to make other comments in regards to Smart Guy.
Yeah, and since we mentioned that this pilot episode shares the same or similar set to Boy Meets World, if you want us to watch that, let us know as well.
Yes, yes, let us know.
But Ma, I think that we're going to end it here unless you have anything else.
No, no, Brandon, I think we're good.
Well, yeah. Well, we hope that you continue tuning in to Tansson Talks TV every Tuesday, and we hope that and we hope that you enjoyed this discussion.
Yes, we hope you did too. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah. Take care.
All right, bye bye.